In this video I show you how I changed the brake pads on the front of a Vauxhall Vivaro. This should also apply to the Renault Traffic and the Nissan Primastar. For the purposes of the video, I've already jacked the van up, secured it with axle stands and removed both the wheels. Also at the end of the video I've not included putting the wheels back on or lowering the van back off the jacks, etc. But please make sure that you take time to bed the brakes in properly, as the response time will be a lot slower and the braking efficiency is greatly reduced with brand new pads. Okay, first job, remove the cap from the brake fluid reservoir. This will help get the pistons back into the calipers later on. I've put some rags round just in case there's any overspill. While you've got the wheel off, it's a good chance to check any components under the wheel arch for damage or corrosion. These are the two main bolts holding the caliper cover in place. You usually get a new set when you buy your brake pads, so make sure to replace them. The next job then is to remove these bolts, the one at the top and the bottom. You may find they can be tight, so you may possibly need some penetrating oil. Mine weren't too bad, so they came out fairly easy. Once the bolts are removed, you can lift the top of the caliper off. This may need a little bit of easing out, but will eventually come loose. Secure the caliper out of the way, making sure there's no strain on the brake hose. You can now remove the old pads. Make sure the area around the disc and the caliper is clean, and now you're ready to put in your new pads. I use a bit of copper grease on areas that contact between the back of the pad or the side of the pad and the actual caliper itself. Be careful not to get any on the actual lining or on the disc. The pad should just then snugly rest in place on the caliper. On the back, I put a bit more of the copper grease where the back of the pad makes contact with the actual pistons. Right, so the next job is to then push the pistons back into the caliper. I've used a clamp and a bit of wood across the pistons to try and push them back in evenly. Try not to do it too quickly. Sometimes you might find that it takes a bit of effort, but then eventually it will slowly go back into the pot. With the pistons pushed all the way back in, you can now reassemble the components. Push the top section back on. It might be a little snug due to the thickness of the new pads. Line everything up and insert the new caliper bolts. Now you're ready to tighten up these bolts. Make sure to refer to your manual to check the torque settings for these. Once these are tight, you can then replicate this procedure on the other side of the van. With both sides done, head into the cab and pump the brake pedal until the pressure builds up. Check the reservoir level and replace the cap. Take it easy on the road until the pads have bedded in.